Hey guys, Kev here, and I'm here to tell you about this fantastic collaboration that 365 Flicks podcasts have come up with just for you. We know when you listen to our top quality podcast, you need top quality headsets, earphones, earbuds. You need the best quality you can possibly get. What did we do? We teamed up with Sudio, www.sudio. Get yourself to the website. It's a fantastic website. They've got headphones, they've got earbuds, they've got wireless speakers, all Bluetooth enabled, all fantastic. These headphones are top quality, stylish, sleek. The sound is impeccable. It kind of sounds like you're in the pod cave with us. That's how good the sound is coming out of these things. Guess what? Here comes the best part. Are you listening? If you go to the website, again, www.sudio, that's Sudio.com. Get yourself onto the store. Once you've found the ones you want, there's a little discount box. Go to the discount box, type in 365 Flicks, that's FLICKS, all caps locks, and you'll get 15% off your purchase. I mean, how good's that? You can't get much better than that. We know how good you need your ear qualities to be. We want to give you eargasms from our podcast. These headsets are gonna help. Trust me, our voices are amazing, but let's be honest, if you could be in this studio with us as we do this, man, you would love it. In the show notes, there will be a link, and that link will take you straight to the page, and there's all those fantastic earbuds and headsets. The Niveas, the Regents, the Trays, they are all gorgeous. Pick one, get one, 365 Flicks, all caps locked. 15% off, people. 15% off. Now, time for the episode.
Definitive 365 cut. These are the meaningless ramblings of a Scottish redone whore and a pissy ex-video store clerk. Their ongoing mission is to set right the movie wrongs. They're gonna need a bigger podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 109 of the 365 Flicks podcast. This is an indie talk. We are back. And thank you very much to Toby and Lee for that wonderful follow-up.
Not had a chance to listen to it yet, but I have got download ready to listen to
You
it.
definitely should, because they did a fantastic job. But that was their episode. This is our episode. Because you know what, man, we didn't get a choice about that. That just happened, and we were just told, just
It was a proper takeover, I feel.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, when you listen to it, you will realise how much of a takeover it actually was. So Toby Osmond, friend of the show, actor extraordinaire, and soon-to-be regular segment guest, and Lee Apsey, who is the writer of Dark Beacon, because I got it wrong on the last episode.
Ah.
Yeah. So those guys did Thor Ragnarok. But anyway, forget about them. This is us. I am Kevin, the Pissy X video store clerk. And you are?
I am the 2017 Floppy Award-winning Brit of the Year.
I don't like how that goes at the start now.
And Scottish Sweden horror, Chris.
I don't like how that goes at the start now.
Tough titties, you should have won it.
You're putting more emphasis on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, we have a corker of an indie talk. As you can tell by the title of the show, we have someone awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it safe to say that this is the nerdiest I've ever been?
This is the nerdiest you've ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worried that would happen.
I wouldn't worry about it. You were fine.
I was thinking to myself, right, Kev, keep your cool. When he gets on the call, keep your cool. Don't lose it. And I lost it within seconds.
Yeah, when he said, "Well done for getting one of the
titles
right,"
I kind of just went, "Oh!" He said, "Well done." It was like
your heart was like that.
It was like an over-the-web pat on the head. It's like something my dad never gave me, was, recognition.
Oh, all right, okay, right.
But yeah, tonight we have Tremors Franchise star Michael Gross. And I am going to say a massive thank you to Paula Courtney, who does a lot of great interviews on her website, Absolute Music Chat. She's great over there, and Paula was very instrumental in making this happen.
Good stuff.
She saw our Tremors review on the Facebook. She listened to the episode, realised that we were like I was a massive fan and that you enjoyed the movie rewatching it. And yeah, she was like, I could maybe, swing a cheeky email for you. And next thing I know, Michael Gross is emailing us saying, dude, when am I coming on the show?
Yeah, she's good people. She
is good people. That's what this whole thing's about. That's what podcasting is all
definitely
for us. We love it. We love getting people out there. We love trying to promote independent people who have their own things, like movies. Everybody knows what Indie Talk's about now, and that's what it is. And it's a connective community, and it gave us Michael Gross. It gave us Burt Gummer.
I know.
I got to sit and talk to him for like an hour.
I know. I was there.
I know you were. I forgot you were there because just like in my periphery, you were nowhere.
Well, yeah. To be fair, like once you started the Tremors talk, I'm not a big Tremors fan as you are, as you know of. I mean, I've not seen 2, 3.
Yeah, I need to give you the
5.
Blu-rays.
You do, yeah. I've been
I keep
threatening to borrow them for like about 6 months now.
Yes.
But I love the first movie. Absolutely love the first movie. So yeah, I was excited too. Yeah, it was great seeing you nerd out.
And he's like a super cool dude as well. Like he's like Burt Gummer is like an awesome cool dude, but Michael Gross himself is like a totally cool man. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I was hoping for. But before we get into the interview, you have got something to do.
I do. Well, you mentioned Paula.
Yes.
Yep. Everybody go and have a look at absolutemusicchat.com.
Yep.
First of all. And again, thank you to Paula for hooking us up there. That is very, very kind of you.
She's an awesome dude.
She is an awesome dude, and she's a Geordie.
Does that mean she knows Ant and Dec? Probably not Ant right now.
She knew Michael Gross, or knows Michael Gross. So
that is awesome.
Why not? So yeah, absolutemusicchat.com. Check that out. Paula is good people, as we've said. You can also look for the 365 Flicks podcast on the Facebook and the Twitters. You can look for us on a couple of cheeky networks. We are on the Tangent Bound Network. We are on We Be Geeks. We are on the Wicked Radio Network. I got that wrong.
Did you?
The wrong way round. That's going to screw the whole thing up.
Yeah, OCD kicking in.
Yep. We Be Geeks. Nerdly.co.uk.
Nerdly!
The awesome home of our awesome British home. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
Nerdly's the British home.
Two things. The wrong way round.
You have one job to do. You literally have one job to do.
One job. How dare you?
No, like this is your main job, and then your other things are like side jobs, like side quests in Skyrim. But this is like your main quest is to get the pimpage right.
Like what's another side job I have?
Turning up.
No,
that's probably like a main-ish job.
Right.
Like day one-ish. See if you can finish up.
There's a joke to be made there, but
there is.
Yeah, there definitely is. Have a look for us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us, and also leave a cheeky 5-star review, especially on this episode.
Yeah.
You can also follow us on the Spotify, and you can find us and subscribe to us on any other third-party podcasting app that you can find for the most part.
Yeah.
Done.
And before we move into the interview, which again will be in a moment, where we are speaking to Burt Gummer, Michael Gross of the Tremors franchise, which, by the way, we have to mention, Tremors 6 is bouncing on the 14th of May. It's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray in the UK.
That's right.
Hopefully this episode will be out. So that will be out. Go and get it. Give it a watch. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure it's awesome because it's Tremors. It's got Graboid, it's got Burt and Jamie Kennedy. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get into the interview, I did another podcast.
Oh, you did it finally?
Yeah.
Well, shit, how did it go?
It was...
You kept that quiet.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous.
Right.
This was a strange one because I thought to myself going into it that I don't have to record this and I don't have to edit it. All I have to do is be there and have my notes.
Were you just a muckle perfectionist?
Yeah, like I had my notes all in a row. The podcast that we're talking about is called the Pop-Up Film Podcast. I'm going to be on it next Tuesday, and then I think the Tuesday afterwards.
You're on 2?
Not only did I stay up till like 1:30 in the morning to record this, but they then dropped the bombshell on me, although Lindsay says they did actually tell me a couple of weeks ago that we were doing 2 episodes back to back. Because you do the first episode, which is where we choose our 4 movies, sort of like a draft thing for a festival, that a made-up festival we're going to make. And it was movies of Ryan Reynolds, not including Deadpool.
Oh.
So you weren't allowed. I had a strong list. Like, I'm not going to spoil it right now, but when you listen to it, I had a pretty strong list. Stronger than the other two guys, is all I'm saying. So I got the best picks. And then the second episode is only half an hour, and it's where you create the festival from the 12 movies, you narrow it down to 5 movies, and then you have your festival.
I'm fairly sure you told me that's how that worked.
Yeah,
so
I know, but then last night, when it was 1:30 in the morning, it kind of slipped my mind. So we came to the end of that first one, I was like, oh, brilliant, I can go to bed now. It's like, it's nearly like 3 o'clock, I can go to bed. And I was like, right, so we're going to just stop the recording and start up again, and episode 2. And I was like, oh, no! But they were good to me, and they made it last half an hour. So there's a joke to be put there as well. But yeah, Pop-Up Film Podcast, get subscribed to it, you will love it. I feel I did a pretty good job. Like, I was putting zingers up there, and they weren't really receiving them. But that's when you need the Scottish Weed and Hall.
So is that like another one of my jobs?
It's one of your side jobs, yeah. Oh, you're not taking that well, are you?
No, that's annoyed me.
Ooh. That's their podcast. This is our podcast. Indie Talk. Interview in progress. Michael Gross, Burt Gummer. Buy the DVD when it comes out. 14th of May. In progress.
How'd you get this number? You from the government? Impossible.
Improbable. Ass blasters in the Arctic? Welcome to the Boyd Canyon Arctic Research Station.
If you've got ass blasters, you have graboids.
Incoming! Go, go, go!
Take a couple of tablespoons of cement and harden the hell up, huh?
He's very excited, Michael.
Can you tell him a little bit?
He's very excited.
Well, it's great.
It's like normally when we're doing these things, I'm fine. This is like, yeah. So tonight on Indie Talk, I am going to be doing the intro because I'm massively excited to be speaking to the star of the Tremors franchise, amongst many, many various other career highlights as well, including Family Ties, a stint on the lawyer drama Suits, some voice work for the Batman movies, and a plethora of things that we will be getting into in a minute. But yeah, tonight we're talking to Michael Gross, Burt Gummer himself, and it's amazing having you on, good sir. How are you today?
I am well, and nice to be with 365 Flicks. Thanks very much for that kind introduction. Yeah. I would say, I noticed you mentioned Suits. Meghan Markle is all the rage over there right now, right? Yeah. It's about a week before our lovely little Los Angeles native becomes a princess or something like that, right?
Yeah, she'll be one of us very soon.
One of us? Okay. So are you guys over in America excited about this? About one of your own becoming a royal, or?
Well, I just think it's fun to watch the royals in general. You know, it's you know, my wife has been glued to every bit of news about this, and I just think it's fun to see the monarchy having come so far. To first of all, I mean, let's face it, she is what they call a commoner. Mm-hmm. She's of mixed race, which is certainly something, you know, and. Yeah, I just think it's great. I think it's the monarchy is making itself relevant in great new ways, and I think that's lovely.
It also helps that she's marrying the cooler of the two brothers.
She definitely is.
Yeah. Harry's a total legend.
You could go for a pint with Harry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, one gets that feeling, and I suppose you guys have done that already. I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Oh, many times.
Yeah, he's always coming around the pod studio. So yeah, Michael, this version of our show goes out fortnightly, and it's known as, I mean, we normally call it Indie Talk, but you have such an extensive career, it feels a bit silly calling it that.
No, I've certainly had my finger in that pie as well.
Definitely,
I mean, I've done my share of independence, and so. You know, it's great to talk about everything. I must say, I consider my life very blessed. You know, when somebody decides decides to make this a completely asinine choice to go into the arts, there's always a certain amount of worry. But it's a bit like falling in love. You feel compelled. If you thought about it seriously and applied reason to it, you wouldn't do it at all. So it's a little like falling in love. It's about passion. And I've just been very fortunate that the what I love doing has worked out, and I've actually, my golly, been able to make a living doing this for over 40 years. So that's a real blessing. I used to pretend as a child for free, and now somebody's paying me, by golly.
Well, that was pretty much the first place I wanted to go. Like, before we get into the release of Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell, we've got a 6 Tremors movie coming, Chris.
We do, yeah.
I'm really excited. But before we delve into that and other aspects of your career, I guess I just wanted to quickly ask, how did Michael Gross get into acting, and was it something, I mean, you've just said you did it for free as a youngster, but is it something you always wanted to do?
No, not at all, to be honest with you. I am a huge railroad fanatic, and as a child, all I wanted to do was be a train driver. I'm serious. Yeah. I'm still a model railroader, and I love trains the way Burt Gummer loves his weaponry, and it's I've been that way since I was a kid. So for many years, that's all I wanted to do, work for the railroad. I got into a play in high school, actually, in my last year of high school, and the play was being presented by an all-girls school. So like every sensible hormonal teenager at the time, I thought, an all-girls school? How can I not be in their play? I went over, this was my senior year in high school, and this was an all-girls Catholic school, and I did it and had a great time, and as a matter of fact, I've stayed friends with some of those people until this very day. And I thought, well, I really love this, but it was... But still, a sensible human being wouldn't do this sort of thing for a living, so I went into college and started looking into the science and medicine. As a matter of fact, I had thought about perhaps becoming a physician, a doctor, and it was on the campus of the university one day, and I think it was my first or second year, when I met someone who said, oh, you were in our play in high school, an actress who had wound up at my university, and she said, they're having auditions for another play here. Why don't you come and audition for it? I said, no, I'm finished with that sort of thing. Well, I went to the audition, and in the style of any good dilettante, I just, out of curiosity, I went there, but in the style of any good dilettante, I sat there and watched these other young men and said, boy, I could do better than that. I'm not even an actor, but good Lord, these guys are terrible. So, after screwing up my courage, another day or so later, I finally auditioned, got a role in that. And the man who directed that play became my first acting teacher, mentor, and some 35 years ago, the best man at my wedding. So nice. Who knew? So it became the beginning of a long-time friendship and collaboration, and the beginning of my career. So this man was quite a generous man. He's still alive, by the way, at age 80, and he's running a theater, if you can believe it. So that's how it all began. And it began in undergraduate school, seriously. And so I still keep my hand in railroading, but it's just the miniatures now. So
that's so cool as well with the railroad thing. I like that.
Yeah, I would have been a train watcher in the UK had I been there. I would have been standing trackside with my notebook, and looking at all the locomotives. Absolutely.
We do have a lot of trains and a lot of train stations, so you'd be perfect.
Oh yeah, I love traveling in Europe. There's just so much to see, Yeah. So that's pretty much how it started, and then I was in. I think I borrowed something from people in the UK. I decided the best way to learn my craft and art was to spend time in the provinces, and I went to drama school in the United States here at Yale University. Actually had a drama school, just as they had a school of medicine, a school of law, a school of art and architecture, a school of divinity. They also had a school of drama. I was fortunate enough to get into the Yale School of Drama. I was there 3 years, and they were really basically training us for the repertory theater, not for film. We had no film experience and no television experience. They were training us for the theater. And I went out and did that for many years until one day a show called Family Ties came calling. I auditioned thinking nothing would come of it. And lo and behold, I had a job for 7 years and moved from New York to Los Angeles, where I met my wife and have been here ever since.
So this was your big breakout, wasn't it, Family Ties?
That was the big break.
Yeah.
In some ways, the big break to bring me out here, because I'd always felt I had great breaks, even as a young theater man, because I was going to good, really fine theaters and working and getting my muscles exercised and honing my craft and all that sort of thing in really fine theaters. So I had one break after another, but this was that, I guess, what you'd call the big break, if you will. A wider audience, far more money than I'd made before, and all that sort of thing. And that led to other things out here. I still do a little bit of theater here and there. Not quite as much as I used to, because at my age now I'm valuing much more time with friends, and as you know, theater can be 8 performances a week, give up your weekends, and so I'd rather be with dear friends and family now on most Friday and Saturday nights than performing in front of a room full of strangers. So it's just, my priorities have changed, and I hate giving up my weekends too.
That's the biggie, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I miss my own daughter's high school and college graduations.
Oh, man.
Because graduations here are commonly held on a Saturday afternoon, and of course I was doing matinees. And so my daughter now has children of her own, and so I thought, no more of that. I'm going to their football matches and their baseball and all that sort of thing, and the priorities have changed, let's put it that way. So I value that time. I value that time with the friends and grandchildren and things like that.
Excellent. And back at the time when you were on Family Ties, and like as you could tell, we are British, we're over here. Family Ties never quite made it to the UK, but it was huge over there, and it was kind of like, what was like for you as an actor going from doing theatre work and being, I would say, relatively unknown, but to going into a show like this and being this hugely recognisable figure? What was that like for yourself?
Tell you a story. I'm surprised it wasn't in the UK. I guess it was not. I was because it was in Ireland, funnily enough.
I think we did have it, but it wasn't like one of those shows that
really didn't catch on in a big way.
No, we had like we had like Ellie Law and Dennis Day and.
Right.
My mother watched every single one of them, but I can't remember her ever watching Family Ties. So I just didn't get it.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was big here. It was certainly in the top 5 shows for many years, week after week, and pretty powerful. And of course, Michael J. Fox was a huge part of that success. And I'll tell you what it was like. My grandparents lived in a rural town in the interior of the United States, in a state called Iowa, right, which is primarily a farming. There are more hogs in Iowa than there are human beings, and it's a very rural state. My grandparents lived there, and I would visit them every summer. I grew up in the city of Chicago, which is a large city, of course, and but spent part of every summer in rural Iowa. And people always used to know me on the street. They'd walk down the street, and I'd walk down the street, and they'd say, "Oh, you're Ruth and Chester's grandson, aren't you?" And I'd say, "Yes." "Oh, they told me you were coming," all this sort of thing. So I say to people, America has just become a little bit like that rural Iowa town where I can walk down the street, and they say, "Oh, you're Michael Gross." And I say, "Yes, that's exactly right." So in some ways it felt like that little town in Iowa had just gotten a trifle bigger. So it would, but it's very nice, and it wasn't the sort of character people would pick a fight with. It was a much beloved show, so people were usually very nice and very very respectful. It was a very popular show, and people loved the family, and so people usually approached me with a good deal of kindness. Let's just put it that way.
And free meals when you went to the restaurants? And
well, you would hope, wouldn't you?
You know, I still didn't get enough free meals.
Oh.
No, no. If you're on a television show, they know you've got a few dollars in your pocket.
I suppose.
They're not about to cut you any slack. No.
And you briefly mentioned, obviously, Michael J. Fox there, who was another big breakout from that show as well. Do you guys still speak? Do you get a chance to see each other much, or?
Yes and no. He lives, America's a big country. He lives 3,000 miles away. I live in Los Angeles. His primary residence is in New York City. So that being said, when I am in New York, we try to have breakfast or lunch together, at the very least coffee. And he has a favorite little restaurant a couple blocks from where he lives, and we usually meet there. And so we do keep in touch. With other cast members, it's much the same. That Family Ties family still resonates for us. Meredith Baxter and I just did a play together a couple of, maybe 6 weeks ago, and we're going to perhaps take it a bit on tour and do some of that in the United States this fall. Do a little bit more touring with that play, and just for short periods of time. And go out for a couple of weeks and then come back again, then go out for another couple of weeks and come back. And since I like to touch base at home. I just did a film with one of our Family Ties writer-producers, a man by the name of Mark Lawrence, who's a wonderfully talented guy who's been doing a lot of films on his own. I think his biggest film would probably be Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock a number of years ago. And I don't know if that got much play in the UK, but he's a nice filmmaker, and we just did a film together for Disney, a holiday film for Disney, their big holiday film, which, for actually I think 2 years hence. So again, that Family Ties connection keeps coming up, and I love it. It was a wonderful family, and I don't just mean the 5 members of our cast, but the crew and the writer producers. It was a great time.
I suppose it'll be like that when you're spending that much time together with a show like that you will keep those connections going. I mean, you played Michael J. Fox's therapist on Spin City.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. That was that was a nice surprise. I happened to be in New York at the time, and Michael was doing his final episode of Spin City, and of course he had come out with the fact that he had Parkinson's disease, and he didn't think he could carry on, because it was not just showing up in front of the cameras. He was producing that show as well. He was running that show. He had a lot of responsibility. But he called me and said, "I'm doing the final episode. Would you appear? Would you like to appear for old time's sake on the final episode of Spin City?" And I said, "Michael, I'd be absolutely thrilled." So yes, I did appear there, and it was a trifle bittersweet, not because he was leaving the show, but because we knew each other so well and had worked together for so long, and I thought, my God, I could almost predict. I knew his timing so well. I knew predict the way the line was going to come out of his mouth, and I thought, like 2 old vaudevillians, I thought, what a shame that we don't still work together, because we know each other, we can read each other so well, and pause in the right places for each other's jokes, and we have such knowledge of each other. What a shame we still don't work together all the time.
He's started to go into different roles in that again now, isn't he?
Yes, he's...
Well, yes, he's been working on some shows here, and does work, freelancing and as a regular on some shows, appears semi-regularly on some shows. So he's been, he still keeps his hand in it, and of course, some of his
I think it's,
most important work right now is with the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's his big passion right now. He's managed to, as we say in the United States, take lemons and make a great deal of lemonade. He's made something very good out of his circumstances, and he's a wonderful man.
Good for you. He deserves it. He definitely does.
Definitely.
I mean, I never watched Spin City after he left. I loved that show though when he was on it. So Michael, you've worked on a lot of different shows and TV, movies, and what have you. I mean, I was looking at your IMDb earlier on. I think it's 118 credits to your name, which is no small feat. So, you've got the likes of Ally McBeal, Spin City we mentioned, Boston Legal is another great show, Parks and Rec, How I Met Your Mother, CSI, we've already mentioned Suits there. So what, if you can talk about them, have been your best and... even more, if you can talk about them, your worst experiences of working on these different types of shows?
Oh, that's a good one. First of all, let me begin by saying that I love the freelance life. I think this, I think I felt, not to dismiss the wonderful time I had on Family Ties, but as I had come out of repertory theater, I was more accustomed to playing 7 characters in 1 year than I was to play one character for 7 years. So I was quite comfortable with I'm very comfortable with the idea of freelancing and going from one character to another. Maybe I have a little of attention deficit disorder or something, but I love the variety. As much as I love salmon, for example, or a great Cornish game hen, I don't want to eat it every night. And I feel the same way about characters. I like the variety of things I'm doing. We'll be talking a little bit about Tremors soon, in which I play this sort of action-adventure, sort of hard-ass character. And next week I'm playing a gay man on a show called Grace and Frankie, which is a Netflix show here in the United States. And I'll be doing... Yeah, I've done that a couple times, and so I'm playing a fairly effeminate man, and I just love the variety of going from an action-adventure hero to someone very different like that, and that's what I love about what I do, just the joy of pretending and the joy of the variety. So, but that's a long-winded way of getting back to your question, which was, to be honest with you, I wish I could make up a good story for you here, but most of my experiences have been very good. A lot of these films I worked on something called ER a number of times. I was Noah Wiley's father on that, and a reoccurring character on that. And that was a well-oiled machine. I think they must have run for something like 11 or 12 years. And that they just had it down. It was so well organized. There was never it just moved perfectly like a well-oiled machine. I've done a lot of the Law and Orders too, and again, they have the formula. You walk in and you feel like they make you feel like the most important person in the room, and they treat you well, and the writing is so wonderful. I really have. Now there are a few. Not so much the television work, but the independent work. I've had a few sad occasions, really, not unpleasant, but where people are new at what they're doing, and they haven't quite got a grasp of things. I'm attracted to the material, but let's say it may be a director who hasn't worked much with actors, or who's a little bit new to the game, and it's terribly underfunded, or something like that, and they're working too quickly for you to get a really good crack at something. There's not a lot of time to explore the material because they're on a tight budget and can't afford a long shooting schedule. Those have been unpleasant, not because the people themselves have been unpleasant, but the circumstances have been difficult.
Maybe just
so, if I thought, a little bit. You don't feel you can quite do your best work. I would say probably the most difficult time I've had, and again, this is because of the way things are rushed, is I've done, I don't know what you call them over in Europe or in the UK, but what we call soap operas here. Are they called soapies over there or something like that?
Soap opera.
Yeah. I did that once for about 6 months, and 5 or 6 months, and it was not excruciating, but it was difficult for me because I like exploring things, and there's no time. They shoot an hour's show in one day. And you better, unless there's a dagger through your heart, or so the scenery falls down on you. They basically do whatever you do, and whatever you say, however your performance is. That's good enough. That's good. Great. Unless you fall dead in the scene, they basically print it and say, on we go. So But I was not well suited to the show, I must say. I asked too many questions, and you're not supposed to. You're just supposed to just get on with it. You know, I'd say things like, well, I just did this show the day before yesterday, and this man wasn't suicidal. Why is he suicidal today, my character? And they'd say, well, don't ask, just do it, just do it. Well, you know, there wasn't time to explore, and I guess, again, that's the old theater person in me talking. I loved rehearsals. I loved that exploration. I always loved rehearsals far more than I did performance. Not to say I wasn't always giving the best performance I could, but it's two different crafts, really. One is creation, and performance is about recreation. Recreation in a very good way, in order to make people think you're doing it for the first time, but I always loved the process of creation more than I did the act of recreation. And so in doing soap operas, there wasn't a lot of time to sit around and discuss and say, hey, how shall we approach this? It's hit your marks, say the words, by God, and on we go. And so I was pretty ill-suited for that work, I must say. And after 5 months, they did not renew my contract, and I wouldn't blame them one bit.
So when they told you that, did you just go, "Oh, thank God"?
Yeah. Well, there was a bit of that. They let me go right before Christmas, and so my wife was thoroughly upset. Because she had this big Christmas in mind, and I said, no, this is all for the good, my darling. This is all for the good. Anyway, it was, but I wasn't suited for it. And that being said, there's some wonderful people there who've done that sort of work for 10 and 20 years, and they're used to it, and it's a little like improvisation. You just have to really just keep the ball rolling and keep the baton passed from one person to another and not ask a lot of questions. And I guess that's, again, the old theater background. I love weeks of rehearsal and going down blind alleys and deciding, that won't work right. Let's try it this way. And trying things. And there's not a lot of time to try things. The starting gate opens every day, and you've got to run that course and get to the finish line. And that work was ill-suited for me. Or I was ill-suited for it. Both.
So with that, let's get on to a role that you're very much suited to. For like I said earlier, we don't know a great deal about Family Ties, but from what we do know is that you, as the father of the show, was a really just a really good guy, a bit of a hero of a father. So how exactly does a character like Burt end up in your life and you end up in his?
Well, I guess that's the beauty of the stage work, because a lot of people had seen me do other things other than Family Ties and some of the let's say the television films I had done and things like that, and so they were willing to trust me with this very different character. And of course, one of the great things about a character like that, well, the question, it came right on the heels of Family Ties. That's 7 years of being in people's homes once a week for 7 years. We did 175 episodes, and people knew you as prominently as one sort of character. And so the question at the end of 7 years is, will there be other things to do? Will I be trusted with other things? And will those sorts of characters be vastly different from what I'm doing now? And unfortunately, Burt Gummer answered both questions in the affirmative. Yes, there would be no more work, and two, some of the characters who'll be asked to play will be very different. That was a real blessing, because it came right on the heels of Family Ties, as I said, and boy, that was a godsend. It was like manna from heaven, and it's just so vastly different. And the fact that somebody would take a chance and trust me with something like that was a great advantage. And to this day, I'm extremely thankful for those original writers, directors who were able to look beyond what I had done for 7 years and say, oh, yes, we've seen you do some other things. We think you're a decent actor. We think you can do this. And so all I can say is Burt's been very good to me all these years later. It's 28 years since we did that first one, and here we are with the sixth installment. So what a great thing.
Was there an audition process for you, or did they kind of, obviously they knew you from Family Ties, they knew you from the work before, or Was it just...
That's a good question. There was an audition because, this was going to be a major motion picture for Paramount Studios, and there were only so many chances they could take, and I had to prove myself. So, of course, they wanted to put me on video, and in those days it was VHS, so they wanted to put me on video, and so I had to do a test and all that sort of thing. And to this day, the director, and I still laugh about it, because to this day he remembers the audition very differently than I did. What he remembers is that I, in portraying Burt Gummer, at one point had jumped up on the top of his desk and was pretending, with an imaginary gun in my hand, shooting monsters and shouting out my lines. And I can't believe I don't remember that at all. I can't recall, and it doesn't sound like me. I can't imagine climbing atop someone's desk, a man I had only known for 5 minutes. Surely I would have been more well-behaved than that. He said, "Oh, no, my God, we couldn't believe how gung-ho you were about this." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't step all over your papers, break your pen and pencil set." But he claims, I don't remember doing the audition. I remember, being very committed, but he seems to suggest that I should have been committed. Perhaps I belonged in an asylum. So I don't recall it that way at all. I remember giving a good reading, and fortunately they said, "Yes, we're offering you the job." But I can't imagine I would have done such a thing. He insists I did.
Or embrace your inner John Wayne.
You just got to go.
Yeah, exactly. I was tapping into some very bizarre source there. If in fact I did that, I still don't. I have no recollection, none.
So talking to you now, apart from obviously the voice, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of Burt Gummer there. How much of yourself is in this character, or is it all just going to another place to become Burt?
Well, it's a bit of both. I mean, acting is a bit of using who you are, right? Using who you are, eliminating those parts of yourself, some subtraction, that is, taking away those parts of yourself that don't work for the character, and addition, inventing things that are totally different from yourself. So it's a bit of using a bit of yourself, using a bit of addition, a bit of subtraction. And I will say that Burt, one of the things I love about him is his obsessive-compulsive disorder, his comically obsessive-compulsive disorder. And I must confess to a little OCD myself. My father did things very ritualistically, a sort of obsessive man, and my mother was a bit of a collector. She could never throw things out, things like that. So I think there's there's the obsessive compulsive gene in our family. I label things. That's what I do for, spend my time making sure I've got all this nonsense, but it's all beautifully labeled, so I can find my nonsense, or lining up my socks in a drawer, that sort of thing. So I have a bit of OCD about me, and I use that for Burt. And my father also, I think, had a bit of, he looked at a lot on the dark side. And Burt is comically paranoid, always worried about catastrophe and how to avert catastrophe. And I do believe I learned that at my father's side. He was always worried about things, He didn't drink, and I always suggested he should. It would be good to just take that edge off just a little bit, soften him a bit. He was a teetotaler, and he was the type of guy who you wanted to have one drink a day. You thought it would be better for him, just to take that little bit of edge off his worry. And so I think that there's a part of Burt. Naturally, comedy is about total imbalance, someone who's just drifted so much to one side. And so I take that little bit about myself and a little bit of what I know about my dad and take it to comic proportions. And the writing was just so beautiful in the first place that we thought, we can't. This is too marvelous. They were already going that way, and they began in subsequent iterations of Tremors to write. They fell in love with the character because he was so wonderfully strange, and whenever a writer falls in love with your character, well, that's comic gold for an actor. That's like finding a pot of gold, the end of the rainbow. When they fall in love with you, they're going to write for that character, and they fell in love with Burt, and so that was a real blessing as well.
Well, that was the question I had for you as well. Was you yourself are I believe you're the only actor to have been in every one of the Tremors movies so far? Yes,
exactly, and that was through. That wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
First of all, what we expected was the original Tremors was simply going to be a one-off, and so we didn't. And it didn't do terribly well in the theaters the first time around. It wasn't out very long, and where it really found its feet was the aftermarket, and found its fame was the aftermarket video. In those days, VHS copies. People began to discover it after it had come and gone at the bricks and mortar theaters, and so that's when the second one came along. And the second one, there were Fred Ward was still a part of it, and Fred's a wonderful actor, and we were very blessed to have him. And in subsequent Tremors films, everybody else started dropping away. Kevin Bacon did not want a part of it. Fred did not come back for the third film. Other people dropped away, and I didn't intend to become the last man standing. But I loved the character so much that whenever they offered it to me, I found it difficult to refuse because I thought it was comic genius. And so it was too good for me to say no because Burt was just wonderful. So I kept saying yes, and everybody else kept saying no, and so I became the last man standing. It's like that great old Agatha Christie story, and then there were none. It also became known as 10 Little Indians, where one by one, 10 characters are 10 people in a room, and they keep being slayed one by some mysterious murderer. And so people kept dropping away, and I always felt that Burt, and again, I was an ensemble player. If they decided to bring back, my theater work had taught me that you're only as good as the company that surrounds you. So we've tried to surround ourselves with good, capable actors, and I would love nothing better than to have Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon and Reba McEntire and myself all together in the same film again, but they've shown no inclination to do so. So here I stand, and and again, I never intended to be the star. Somebody said, "You're the star." I said, "I don't know what that means." I said, "I'm a character actor who loves playing in an ensemble. You can call me whatever you want, but that's the most comfortable as part of a great ensemble of characters."
Well, it's no real surprise to me in the franchise because I remember as a youngster sitting and watching Tremors and Tremors 2, and Burt is the breakaway. He's the breakaway character of those movies. He's such a good character, and I think it is the way you play him. He's a bit more outlandish than everyone else. Everybody's kind of like, there's this big thing going on, there's these underground worms coming after us, and Burt's completely at home in this situation. He's like, I was made for this.
Yes, right. I've been preparing for catastrophe my entire life.
Exactly, just the way Burt comes across is like, I'm sure there's a line, he's like, I've been telling you, I've been saying this, and he's kind of like, this was always going to happen, and it's just like...
Yes, exactly.
You instantly fall in love with Burt. So the fact that character is the one that became, like, for 3, 4, 5, and 6, like, the main character, it was no real surprise for me.
Yeah, and as I say, the writers fell in love with him, but you're also quite right in mentioning that he's the craziest of a certain bunch of people, because all these people in their own way are somewhat queer. That is to say, in most of these films, these are people who do not live in an urban environment. They've chosen to take themselves out of society in small towns, in isolated places. And Burt is simply the queerest of what is already a somewhat queer group, of people who have chosen to isolate themselves. And but Burt works best when he's surrounded by semi-normal people because, again, comedy works best by contrast. He's simply the most outlandish of what is already an interestingly strange group, but he just happens to be a bit stranger than most of them.
I do just love the way everybody's kind of like, this is such a surreal situation, and Bert's like, yeah, okay, I'm prepared. Let's
right, yeah. What do you mean the rest of you aren't ready? Yeah.
But from those movies, you must have some really cool behind-the-scenes stories. Is there anything you can give us that you might be able to share about your time in the Tremors franchise before we get on to Tremors 6, and we'll get into that in a second?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. This is something that actually never happened, but it shows you where my queer head is at. In Tremors 4, which was I forget it was a prequel.
Yeah, it was the
Tremors 4 was right. That's exactly right. Couldn't think of the subtitle. The Legend Begins. Yeah, very good. I played my own grandfather, Hiram Gummer, and it was by far one of the most interesting pieces for me of the whole bunch because up until that time. Because Burt's character didn't change much over time in the first three. He was good at what he did. He was accomplished. I mean, yes, there were obstacles. There were hurdles for him to jump and all that sort of thing. But he was basically the same guy from beginning to end. He was a monster hunter, and that was his character. Tremors 4, The Legend Begins, became very interesting for me because suddenly this was a very different character. And his arc, if you will, his storyline from beginning to end was far more fascinating to me because he started as a somewhat snobbish man from the eastern part of the United States who wanted nothing to do with these cowboys and their backward ways and their lack of civilization in the western United States. He wanted nothing to do with guns. He wanted nothing to do with the place or the people. He found themselves there under strange circumstances. And in the course of the film, he discovers he's not only falling in love, beginning to appreciate some of what these people are, but that he's also deciding that the place they choose to call home is worth fighting for. And of course he comes to realize, for a man who's never shot a gun in his life, that's the only appropriate tool necessary in this case. So he has to reluctantly, but gradually, put that new tool in his kit, that is to say, weaponry. So that was interesting, but I'll tell you the silly story about this. So this is something that never happened on the set, but as you say, I planned, we had long talked about, okay, you're going to be playing his ancestor, Hiram. I tried for the longest time to get the writers to let me play not my own grandfather, but my own grandmother. I thought it would be such fun if I could play, Henrietta Gummer or something like this. That there was this, I'm 6'3", and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful? In the Old West, they used to have these. There was a great lack of women, and so people would send away for what they call mail order brides. They would send for somebody back east, man looking for a woman who wants adventure, doesn't mind riding horses, tilling the fields and all that sort of thing, will provide good income for you. Men used to send away. So my idea for Tremors 4 was this little pipsqueak of a man sends away for a war bride, or a mail order bride from back east, and out of the stagecoach, and this man is like, picture him at about 4'11". Out of the stagecoach pops a 6'3" woman, and I didn't want, and who happens to be this so this man's name was Gummer, and so I thought it would be fun if all of Burt Gummer's fury and fight came from the woman's lineage, his grandmother's lineage rather than his grandfather, and he got that tough side, and she was a tough sort of no nonsense woman, and my idea was to not play this, was to be thoroughly made up and dressed as a female. In other words, I didn't want to play this. This was not a cross-dresser, male impersonator. I wanted to play it as a woman. Because, again, I thought that one of the things I wanted to do is, as an actor, is I love the variety and I love the challenge of doing something that is so unlike me. So I, wanted to wear women's dresses and made up a woman, much like Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie. Yeah. I wanted to look like a thoroughgoing woman and be able to pull this off as an actor. And, oh, my God, they were having none of it. They were like, they thought I was insane. And in the nicest possible way, told me no multiple times. But that would have been, to this day, I wish I could. I've played female characters a couple times. There's certain roles that are famous for men playing them. Lady Bracknell in The Importance of Being Earnest and things like that is a famous one on the stage. And I know it's far more common in British theater than it is in the United States for a man to play a woman's role. But I've always been attracted to that. Just let's be outlandish here. Let's play it straight, not for laughs. I really wanted to play Burt Gummer's grandmother, and I thought it would be wonderful if they have a 6'3" woman and this little pipsqueak of a man who was kind of what we call milquetoast over here. A little bit of a sissy, and that Burt gets his tough side from the female side of the family. Anyway, that was my idea, but the studio wouldn't go for that. They was like, "Thank you very much, Mr. Gross. Now on to more important things."
I kind of like the idea of Burt getting his moxie from a lady.
That's exactly what I thought. It would be such a great turnabout, and totally surprising. But I didn't win that one.
I now do, though. I now kind of believe the story of you jumping on the table.
Yeah, you may be right. Yeah, right.
I'm listening to how into the idea you were. I'm like, yeah, that definitely happened. You jumped on that table.
You're probably right. So in Tremors 6, Tremors 5 and Tremors 6, it had been about 12 or 13 years between Tremors 4 and Tremors 5. And so I never expected to see this again. But by golly, one of the people at Universal who's always loved this franchise got them to do a fifth and reinvent ourselves after 13 years. And one of the discussions we had in both 5 and 6 had a lot to do with the fact that I wanted a more interesting journey than to just be a monster hunter. Mm-hmm. I wanted personal obstacles instead of just professional obstacles. And so in Tremors 5, we introduced the obstacle for him. The hurdle for him was having a blood relative. He had really been a loner. He was a man who was a real misanthrope, really. He didn't want a lot to do. He was an isolator, didn't want a lot to do with other human beings. And so we thought, what are the most challenging things for somebody like that? Clearly, it's another human being who says, I'm a blood relative and I want to spend time with you. Hello, I'm coming from out of nowhere and saying to this man who is a loner, an isolator, we're going to spend time together. I'm thrusting myself upon you at this point. So that was the obstacle for Burt in that in Tremors 5. There's somebody out here, family, a son you never knew about, and you've got to learn to live with somebody else, or at least endure them. So that was the obstacle for Burt. In Tremors 6, without giving too much away, the hurdle for Burt is that he faces something he's never quite faced before in any of these Tremor films, and he has to learn to give over control. His son Travis is back, played by Jamie Kennedy. This man is back in Tremor 6, and Burt has to give control over to Jamie Kennedy, his son, in the course of this film. And for a man who is an absolute control freak, wants to micromanage everything, wants to totally be in charge, this was a hurdle for him. Basically ceding control to someone else. So that's his big obstacle in Tremors 6. Yes, we have the monsters. Yes, we have all the things you've come to expect from Tremors. But again, I find it more interesting to say, well, what are his personal monsters?
Yeah.
What are his psychological monsters? That's far more interesting to me than just simply repeating ourselves, taking out a big gun and shooting at something. So, and should there be a Tremor 7? We're also thinking of, we've already got ideas for that. Well, that remains to be seen. We've got a long way to go before that happens. But we've already begun to start talking about possible storylines.
Excellent.
If there were to be a 7th. So that's, for the Tremors fan who's been there before, Tremors 6 will be quite different in that we're in a very different locale. We're not in a desert. Most of these others have taken place in very arid regions where there's a lot of desert, if you will, the Old West. And in this one, I'm not giving too much away because it's right on the cover and it's in the trailers. We find ourselves in the Arctic. So we've taken ourselves to a very different part of the world. So that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. We decided to shake things up a little bit and take it to a completely different geographic situation. And we've returned to some of the first things in the first film. For the first time in a long time, since Tremors 3, we'll be back at Chang's Market.
Oh, nice.
In Perfection Valley, Nevada. Yes, we begin.
That's going to tickle my nerd bone there. That
We will be in. Burt is the first time we see Burt. He is in Chang's Market.
Oh, nice.
So we're back in Perfection for a little bit of the film, and you will also see some interesting references to Valentine McKee, the man who played by Kevin Bacon in the first film. Now, I don't mean to lead you on. Kevin Bacon will not be appearing in this, but there are some interesting references and some references to the first film that you will find interesting, including being back at Chang's and some tie-ins with Valentine, Val McKee.
So do we get told the population of the town again, or?
Oh, it's very small. It's almost Perfection has fallen on some very, very hard times. There's hardly anything left. There's hardly anything worth mentioning. There's a few people who come in for to see the Graboid phenomenon and things like that, and it will not surprise you to find that Burt has fallen on hard times, and he's. I'm not giving too much away because again, you find these out. The first couple minutes of the film, he's refused to pay federal income taxes for several years, and so there's a lien against his property, and his property is. He basically the feds have taken his property from him. It's Loctite. They've confiscated his compound, so he might as well go to the Arctic because he's got nowhere else to go.
Surely Burt shouldn't have to pay taxes by now.
Right. Unfortunately, it's still a law here in the United States, right? So Burt's form of protest has not worked out very well. The feds want his property, and he's been locked out of his own compound. I'm not giving too much away, but it gets kind of fun. Burt and Perfection have fallen on hard times. Let's just put it that way.
One of the questions I did have, I got sent a solicit from the guys at Universal the other day. And a very interesting line really piqued my interest when it mentioned that we were going to see some underwater graboids. Is this anything you can tell us about?
Well, just that in every Tremors there's something sort of surprising about them. There's something new that they haven't counted on, and this was one of those things. the character of Burt is not himself in that scene, so he doesn't witness it. But basically, one of the biggest changes is, of course, they're in a place they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are a desert phenomenon. So why are we suddenly in the Arctic, and how are these things different? Is always one of the fun things to see. So without giving too much away, there are some difference here. These are Arctic dwellers, and they found a way to bore through ice. Okay,
The trailer's excellent. The trailer, it's pretty nuts, to be fair, but it's everything I expect from a new Tremors movie coming out, and really kind of got my interest. And you yourself were fantastic on the social media, sort of teasing with the pictures, and you guys were out in South Africa and getting like all these little morsels to chew on, and it was great. Just again, sort of being part of this little fandom again, that we're getting another Tremors, and I hope you keep making these movies forever. So
thank you. He's just such fun, and Tremors 5 was fun too. I mean, the great ethnic stuff we had there, just working in South Africa, and the color and the great actors there, and I think I'm going to I know you can't continue to talk to me forever, but I will say, I'll leave you with this thought. I think Tremors is ultimately has been a great hit because it's a very old-fashioned sort of film in its own way.
Definitely.
I think it's a film. It is a film about the good guys fighting the bad guys, and the bad guys in this case are monsters. There's a lot of mention made by the fact that, particularly in the rest of the world, that they think we're crazy with all our guns over here in America, and I in some ways I share that view with the liberality of gun laws and things like that. But I have to say, there are times when I have to examine my conscience when I'm playing Burt, for example, and say, my goodness, am I contributing to this madness, or abetting it, or what? How do I feel? And you must, and you'll know this if you're as much of a Tremors nerd as you say you are. Burt has never in any of these films pointed his gun in anger at another human being.
Oh God, no! That's not Burt at all.
No, that's not Burt at all. Our prey are not other human beings. Our prey are monsters, and we fought that in a variety of multicultural ways. What made me think of this is the fact that we were in Africa, side by side with black people. We've had Chicanos. We've had brown people. We've had Asians. We've had Africans. It's all one. Tremors sometimes feels like the United Nations because we have all these different sorts of people, and we're united in one thing, which is to kill that thing which would otherwise kill humanity. So as humans, we're very allied and very much on the same page. So I'm not a great fan of slasher movies where people, really strange criminal-minded people go after other people as their prey. Tremors is old-fashioned. We have one enemy, and that's the monsters. And as human beings, we're all allied, no matter what color we are, no matter what our belief system. And in that respect, I think we're still very proud of Tremors and the fact that the guns are for one thing, tools against the monsters, not against each other. So in that respect, we hope to keep a sort of moral purity about the franchise, if you will.
Yeah, and as it should be. One last thing, because what we like to do when we have a guest on the show, such as yourself, like some of the creatives, the directors, the actors, the producers that we speak to on the show, we have a section on our website called the 365 Picks, and it's basically we're asking our guests if they could give us one movie to go on a list of 365 movies that you should see before you die. Is there anything that springs to mind that you could give us?
Well, there are a couple. What springs to mind constantly for me is maybe because I'm in the business I'm in, but a movie called Sunset Boulevard.
All right, yes.
Sunset Boulevard with Gloria Swanson, William Holden, a film made in the, I think, late 40s, early 50s, which is about somebody trying to pursue the Hollywood dream and how it becomes so terribly warped. It's a great film for characters, and it's a great film for people who have decided that Hollywood, that this business, that any business, is the most important thing in their lives, and who can't let go of it. It's to me a real morality tale about not putting all of your eggs in any one basket, and how someone can get in terrible trouble by believing in the fantasy that is Hollywood. I guess. Or any fantasy we have. You don't have to live in the real world. So anyway, that's something that's a film I've always enjoyed from the moment I saw it. When I was maybe perhaps in high school or college, I was struck by it, and I thought, oh my God. And so I'll watch that at any opportunity I get.
Well, that's the point. That's the point of the list.
Yeah, that's my Sunset Boulevard.
Excellent pick. So, Tremors 6, I keep calling it Tremors 6, it's just Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell, isn't it?
Right, that's correct. That's my understanding. Yes.
We'll be dropping here in the UK on DVD and Blu-ray on the 14th. I will be picking up my Blu-ray. We've been pimping out a little bit on the website and on the Facebook and the Twitter. We definitely will, as the show's coming out. We'll put it all, when the episode goes live, we'll put it all over the place, and we'll try and get more eyes on this. This has been absolutely phenomenal for me. I mean, Tremors has been a huge movie in my life. It's great to get to sit here and just sort of nerd out with you for a little bit.
Well, it's I guess I'm a little, after all these years, I'm a little bit of a Tremors nerd myself, because I enjoy Burt. I consider myself an advocate for Burt. I'm very much in his corner. I like the character. I think I'm crazy about him, so I love the talk. Do you have a Facebook page, you guys? And if you ever want to check mine out, it's very easy. It's facebook.com/actor Michael Gross. And I talk a lot about, of course, naturally this and the fun I have with Burt, and I take a lot of behind-the-scenes photos and try and share them from time to time, and stuff you won't see from Universal or anybody else because it was my camera. That's why, and it was taken on location. So I share that from time to time. So. You're welcome to continue your nerd-like life on my Facebook page, and I will take a look at yours. So thank you very much.
And I would definitely recommend that people do that, because you do, when you were filming this new Tremors movie, you were putting a lot of stuff out there, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be cool.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, gents. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The pleasure's been mine, and I wish you all well, and hope to see you in the UK in person someday.
Oh, that would be great.
Cheers to you both.
Greetings from Tromaville. I'm Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment and creator of The Toxic Avenger. You know, folks, when the Troma team and I are not making those great movies like Tromeo and Juliet and Terra Firma and Return to Nukem High, a.k.a. Volume 2, the Troma team and I like to kick back and inhale the most educational and entertaining podcast in the world, Poop Culture.
Hello, I'm Toxie. I love poop culture. Poop culture is the best. I like poop culture. In fact, I even look like some poop right now. If you look closely, it's kind of a poop.
But I'm 70 years old and I want to blow my fucking brains out. So, honestly, I don't even know why I care.
1, 2, 3, 4. Poop culture, yeah.
I'm rolling. I'm hating. I'm pretty nerdy. We'll edit that out.
I don't think you should. I think you should leave that in.
So, dude, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm on cloud 9 right now.
I know you are.
Is that sad?
No, not sad at all.
We've met some pretty cool people, and we've spoken to some pretty cool people. Like, we had Ross Marquand on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome. Ian Beattie's probably one of my favourites so far. The guy from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
He was brilliant. I'd love to get him on properly. We've got MCM coming up in a minute, and there's like some awesome people going to be there.
Oh shit, there certainly is.
They have announced some corkers in the last couple of days.
There's one I'm very, very, very excited about.
I hadn't seen it.
Perhaps a little bit too excited, I'm not sure.
Well, it sounds like Jason's a bit more excited. Sounds like he might be a stalker.
I wouldn't. He seems that type.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, anyway.
He does.
Yeah.
So Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
Is going to be there.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll
I
get
really
to
want to interview Rosario Dawson. She's awesome.
Hopefully we'll get a part of that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. We also have Chris Barry's going to be there. The man who slipped away from us at SFW.
Yeah, the one that got away.
He did a runner.
Bastard.
I know, but we'll get him this time. and
that sounded sinister.
And James Purefoy.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Which, to be honest, I kind of saw that one. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like I think there's something going on there, because when you look at they do fan experiences as well when you're there, like in different parts. I'm assuming it's like you go into a booth and all this and like stuff going on. One of them is the Altered Carbon fan experience, which James Purefoy's in that. Do you think maybe a cheeky Joel Kinnaman appearance? Like it could be. Like he's the star of the show. It would be pretty cool. Seems to be a bit of a Netflix vibe going on.
See, I loved you in Avatar.
We'll not say that because he wasn't in that.
Sorry.
That was Sam Worthington. That was the other Jared Eric face.
Oh, you were great in A Good Day to Die Hard. Sorry,
that was Jai Courtney. He was in Suicide Squad with Jai Courtney.
That's right.
But you kept getting them mixed up, didn't you?
It's easy done, to be fair.
He was the one that said, "You cut and run." My favourite line of the movie.
I don't have a favourite line in that movie.
So yeah, guys, we've got a lot of stuff happening right now. We've got some more indie talks coming up, stuff that I haven't even spoken to Chris about yet. But we got a lot coming up. Keep in with the podcast. There's just great stuff happening all around.
Yeah.
But this one, I'm not gonna lie.
This is a special one for you.
This one is gonna have a place in my heart.
Good.
We spoke to Michael Gross, the man that is Burt Gummer.
Yeah.
Leave it there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.